Welcome to Produce Talks.
This whole business is based on relationship and friendships.
Food is darn simple.
What can we do? What are other countries doing?
How important it is for industry to be talking about this.
We're going back to the farm. We're going back to the whole food.
Hello and welcome to Produce Talks, the CPMA podcast. This episode, we turn to a panel of young leaders in produce as we continue our focus on the development of young professionals growing in our sector. The panel webinar was held earlier this year in February, and it included past Mary Fitzgerald Award winners, individuals that have been recognized as young leaders in the industry. And the panel focused on several topics of leadership, mindset, mentorship, and what makes the produce industry a unique one to develop and grow in. And joining me now to help introduce the panel before we launch it is Greg Ogiba, Principal of GRO Advantage and CPMA Education Committee Chair. Welcome back to the podcast, Greg.
Hi, Ian. Happy to be here.
So you moderated this Growing in Produce panel in February, and immediately after it, you and I both got incredibly positive feedback from it. And I think it's great that we're releasing it now as a podcast.
Yeah, I agree. It's great that we're releasing this as a podcast to reach a bigger audience. And we had three awesome panelists, and they were Stephanie Lariviere from Erie James, Ryan Goad from Loblaws, and Mike Catalano from the wonderful company. And what made this session really special is that each of the panelists come from a different sector of our industry, as well as from companies of very different sizes, from a relatively small grower up to a mega-sized retailer. So we had some very unique perspectives. And I was blown away by their advice and feedback. And as you said, Ian, we had great feedback from the audience, those that watched the webinar live. And these guests also made my life as the host pretty easy. My job is simply not to mess it up too much, as well as to extract the most information out of them as possible for the audience benefit. And I think it was very successful. And I should also mention that you did a great job, Ian, by organizing this panel.
Yeah, no, it was a really good one. And, even we had a couple of CPMA staff, a couple PFP alumni as attendees as well. And they all had very positive things to say. And thank you for hosting. When you were listening to them speak, what was the biggest theme or piece of advice from the panel that really stood out for you that maybe our listeners can listen out for?
Yeah, to me, what stood out the most was that each of these panelists took control and continue to take control of their own career paths. And they're proactive on building and maintaining their network. And they're constantly engaged in personal development and finding ways to improve themselves. And even during a pandemic, they've managed to keep this going. So I think most of our audience, when I was hosting it live, I could see some of the names and I could tell most were sort of mid-career or earlier career professionals looking for tips on how to navigate their careers, as well as manage their network through a pandemic. And I think Stephanie, Mike, and Ryan really hit the nail on the head. And I actually went back and watched the recording afterwards. I'm sort of in the middle of my own career. Mm-hmm. And I took notes, and I found it really, really useful personally. And I'm sure this podcast audience will too. So if you're listening to this and you're out for an hour-long drive or a bike ride or whatever, take us with you, and I guarantee you'll leave inspired.
That's awesome. Yeah. And thanks again, Greg, for hosting, and thanks for the introduction. So to our audience, enjoy.
Welcome, everybody, to our panel today in Growing for Produce. It's great to see some of your faces here. We're on Teams. I could see the names and some of the faces. And for those of you who don't know me, my name is Greg Ogiba. I'm the principal at GRO Advantage, as well as the CPMA Education Committee Chair. And we have a great panel for this hour, and I'm going to introduce our panelists shortly. And we're going to attempt to leave some time for the audience Q&A at the end. So if you'd like to submit a question in the chat box, everybody's going to see it, but please feel free to do so, and I will attempt to get to it towards the end. Our three panelists joining us today are Ryan Goad. He's the Senior Director for Produce, Floral, and Garden Procurement at Loblaws. Mike Catalano, the Director of National Sales with the wonderful company. And Stephanie Lariviere, Sales and Regulatory Affairs Manager at Erie James. My hope is that during this session, you and the audience, you get a sense of how three very dynamic individuals got into produce, what they love about it, what their companies do to help them develop, and then finally what they do personally to continue with that development. And I'm sure you'll find this particularly interesting because our panelists come from everywhere along the supply chain, literally along the full supply chain from the grower up to the retailer and everything in between. And they also come from companies of various sizes. So we have Erie James with about 100 employees, all the way up to Loblaws, which has about 200,000, and the wonderful company in the middle, somewhere around 7,000. So we're going to have some really unique perspectives here. Let's jump into it. Ryan, Mike, Stephanie, thank you for joining us today. You are all winners of the CPMA Mary Fitzgerald Award, and for those of you who don't know what that is, it's an award that's given each year to recognize one young professional for their passion and dedication in the Canadian produce industry. So you are all very well placed to speak about the next generation of produce. So to start, can each of you please give us a little bit more about your role and how you got started in the produce industry? So Stephanie, I'll hand it over to you. You can go first, please.
Thanks very much. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Stephanie Lariviere. I'm the Regulatory Affairs Manager for both Erie James Limited and Sensation Acres, Inc. We grow, pack, market, and ship fresh greenhouse vegetables. I work in sales, but I'm also the Director of Food Safety and Biosecurity, and I oversee all the trade requirements, regulatory compliance for both of our companies. I've been heavily involved in the produce, all facets of the produce industry for about 23 years. I grew up in produce. I used to play as a child on my grandfather's farm, who immigrated here from Italy many years ago. We used to pick apples and field tomatoes, and then they were sent over to be graded, packed, sold, and sent to market by my other grandfather, whose legacy can now be traced back 100 years in the produce industry to 1921. Third generation to our family's owned and operated companies, and I got my start grading, sorting, and packing cucumbers and tomatoes and other greenhouse vegetables on the warehouse floor when I was just saving up for my university studies to put myself through school. And after completing 2 honors degrees at University of Windsor, I came back home and my role quickly expanded full-time in the business to administration, grower accounting, inventory control and production records, sales, import and export trade, and then food safety, and most recently now biosecurity. So my current expertise really is managing the company's compliance of all the regulatory programs, but I've also stayed involved in our industry by serving on a variety of industry committees which represent our stakeholders. Thanks.
Wow, so you do a bit of everything. I probably should have asked you what you don't do in your role. I think that would have been a better question for next time. All right, so Mike, same question. A little bit about your role? I don't think you came originally from produce. I'm interested to see your journey. How did you end up here?
So current role right now is head of sales for the wonderful company up in Canada. So many of you know our brands, the pistachios, pomegranate juice, halos, and citrus. My role is overseeing the sales, the direct team that I have under me, as well as liaisoning with our merchandising team. And at the same time, I handle most of what we'll call the governmental or industry affairs for us, things like CPMA. I never started in produce. My career actually started in banking after I did my MBA. I did a year in that and realized it wasn't for me, and went over to CPG with S.C. Johnson and Procter & Gamble, various tenures, and I just wanted something different. I got to the point where I just wasn't fulfilled in the role. Phenomenal companies, it just wasn't what I had my heart set on. And a fluke phone call from my past boss through a headhunter, seeing if I was interested in jumping ship. I did some research on the company and thought, why not take a risk and go for it? And it was the best decision I've made career-wise. And I'm coming on to year number 7 this June, and it's been nothing but fun. It's been challenging, and it's a fast-paced industry, but it has been a lot of fun.
So, I mean, what would you say the main differences are? I mean, we're glad to have you in produce, but just from coming from banking and that sort of stuff to produce.
It's just more fluid and dynamic in produce. Like, you need to react so quickly, be prepared so quickly. I mean, the fruit is going to expire, die on the vine, so to speak. just the speed at which things happen and the ability to build something. I mean, there's a lot more building of the businesses I find in produce and partnering with our retail partners to make their plans come to life. And I just find it's more vibrant and alive, so to speak, in produce.
Awesome. Agree 100%. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate that. And speaking of our retail partners, so Ryan, I don't think you come from produce originally either, so be interested to hear your journey.
Yeah, technically not, actually. So first off, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Greg, for the introduction. So I am Ryan Goad, Senior Category Director in the Loblaws Fresh Procurement Division, and in my portfolio, I look after a number of produce commodities as well as the entirety of indoor floral and garden procurement for our national store network. Essentially, what that means is I manage a series of category teams that do the day-to-day buying for our company, for our customers, as well as a lot of kind of higher-level business strategy, strategic initiatives, colleague development, that kind of stuff. And I support those teams on the day-to-day. My specific produce portfolio is pretty diverse. Grapes, stone fruit, root veg, salad bar, citrus, cooking, salad veg, corn, and beans. Along with some other specialty mixed into that, along with the indoor floral and the garden. And yeah, Greg, echoing what you had mentioned, I didn't think of produce as an industry to start with. I started, working in grocery retail when I was 15 at Superstore, just as something to pay the bills. I paid my way through university, and I actually graduated with a business finance degree in 2009. In the heart of the 2009 economic recession, right? So you can imagine having a business degree as a new graduate in that year was like next to worthless, basically. I found an internal job posting within the Loblaws sites as I was working at one of their stores, and I started with a field-to-fork analyst role in a produce office out in far-flung Cambridge at the time. And that was an interesting role because it looked at the entire value chain of the operation from growing practices all the way through to final consumer. And the task was to tease out ways to pull efficiencies and freshness into the system. So that was cool because it gave me a picture of everything from start to finish and really kind of gave me great insight to what I'd be interested in. And I kind of leaned into procurement as something. It kind of interested me in a lot of ways that my finance background was. Like, I thought I would be a stock trader at the very beginning of all this stuff, right? So, the high level of autonomy, the constant fluctuations, everyone is incentivized to sell and make the deal. So, it's very fast-paced and somewhat intoxicating in that sense. So that's kind of what I saw as an outsider looking in, and I decided that's really where I wanted to go. From there, I took a couple developmental type roles within produce procurement, so started assisting a category director on the grapes desk. A couple of years there, I moved up to category director, had a number of different commodities within that, but mainly the grapes were the mainstay of my portfolio. And man, I'm telling you, I love that role. Like the grape deal, the vendors, the amount of change and advancement within the industry, it was really, really fun. And then really finally in late 2019, I took this position as senior director. So now I oversee a number of those category teams.
Gotcha. I just had lunch downstairs before this, and we have the PC Sweet Celebration bag. And my wife and I said, I think it's the best variety. It's the right flavor. It's the right crunchiness and all that. So if you're behind that, thanks. Well done.
Well, it was now. Now it's my very capable team that's looking after it.
Okay, cool. So thank you all for the introduction. As I said, we're really lucky to have all of you in produce. And as I promised at the beginning, we really do have the whole supply chain, the whole industry covered here between the three of you. So now we'll switch gears, and Ryan, I'm going to come back to you and talk about the companies that you work for. And more and more young professionals are demanding that the companies they work for are values driven. So the question that I have are, what are those values in your company that resonate with young people and with you? And then how do you incorporate that into your day-to-day work?
Okay, so for us, we do actually have like legitimate corporate values that we share, as well as a mission statement. So I'll touch on those very briefly. Our foundational culture values are ones of caring, ownership, respect, and excellence. Those are the four key pillars. And our mission is to help Canadians live life well. So the culture values are super important because when it comes down to a day-to-day, it shapes how we operate and interact with each other as we do the business of procuring produce. It really does empower us to focus on not just the results that we did achieve, but how we achieve them. So it really kind of, I don't want to say forces, it empowers us to look into the means that we did to get to the end, right? And personally, that resonates very well with me because I get a sense that the company really genuinely cares about the well-being and development of its people. And you see it all throughout the industry. This is not, a leaflet that gets circulated around once a year and then forgotten when times get tough, right? It really is something that kind of people live and breathe the day-to-day. In terms of the mission, I think there's real value in people having a greater sense of purpose to what they do. I think we all want our contributions to be meaningful at the end of the day, right? And in the day-to-day, for us, it's about consistently tying back what we do to the big picture. So we feed Canadian families, full stop, right? And more specifically, we provide them with fresh produce. It's like the best, the healthiest food that you can put into your body. We're not selling cigarettes, we're not selling soda pop, we're selling fresh fruits and vegetables, right? And really linking back to the decisions that our teams make today will directly impact how a large portion of Canadians feed their families in a couple weeks from now. And when we put it in that context and we frame it up that way, I think it's very powerful and motivating, and it gives everyone a really strong sense of purpose.
That's awesome. I mean, that's the word that jumps out, purpose. So we are so fortunate in produce to be able to, as you say, contribute to feeding families, contribute to the farming community and how important that is for the economy, et cetera. So that's awesome, Ryan. Thanks for that. So we're going to kind of work from, I guess, the biggest, work backwards. So Mike, same question for you. What sort of values do you have in your company, and how does that appeal to you and to young people?
Yeah, I mean, similar to what Ryan said, it's almost identical, obviously, just in ways, but similarly, the purpose, in our case, nourishing naturally. I think when you look at the values of our company, I kind of break them up into two, which is one is trying to do well. So nourishing, feeding families. And when you actually meet the Resnicks, and when I was looking at companies, when you actually read all the things that they're doing, they're not talking about doing good, they are doing good. So they are investing in the communities they play in, and you can see that in the Central Valley. They believe in sustainability. $750 million donated to UCLA to establish a new institute. I like the idea that someone's not just saying it, and I think that appeals to people when they can see the actual desire to do well being put into practice. At the same time, I liked the values they brought to business, which was, we play hard, we play to win, but we do it ethically and we do it the right way. Because that's super important. I think as you develop in your career, you want to win, but you want to win sustainably and you want to win in the right way so that you've got a platform to build upon, because your company and your reputation will inextricably be linked in various ways. So when I reviewed my company before joining, those are the things I looked at in terms of values. And I think based on who we're bringing into our company and what we're seeing and what we're asking them about when they join, they seem to be in line. So hopefully that gives you enough of an answer on that one, Greg.
Yeah, it does. Thanks. I love that aspect of the company, walking the walk. It's not just talk. And what you said there, win sustainably. So that's another word, purpose, win sustainably. I'm keeping some notes for myself. Thanks, Mike. So Stephanie, same thing, values question. What is your company doing?
There are really three key values that stand out to me that really drive what we do at Erie James. The first one is integrity. We're very proud to hold the highest rating in the Blue Book, recognized for over 75 years of integrity in the industry. We uphold a strong conviction to stand by our word with no exceptions, and that trust is very important. The other value at the core of what we do every day is our joint partnerships. We carefully maintain and try to develop profitable relationships with all our partners along the supply chain. From our growers to our retailers, that includes all of our customers, suppliers, carriers, and our employees. We recognize that their success is really our success and that we're all interconnected. And I think that it's really important to take pride in what you do and to work for a company that you can be proud to be a part of, one that stands for more than just bringing a product to market. And lastly, I would say volunteer leadership. I'm extremely fortunate to work for a company who believes in keeping a finger on the daily pulse of the industry, and by getting involved and participating in industry committees and other initiatives that ensure the future success of our industry. Not only are they very supportive of my own time, but the officers of our company, they lead by example, and they contribute their knowledge and their experience too by volunteering themselves.
We're going to take a very quick break with a word from our sponsor, Nature Fresh Farms, and then we'll get you back to the panel.
Hi everyone, it's Sarah here. Agriculture offers important opportunities for young professionals searching to develop their skills and contribute to the future of food security and sustainable development. At Nature Fresh Farms, we are always looking for new individuals that have a passion for produce and uses innovative thinking that could help revolutionize the food chain. For more information on career opportunities, visit www.naturefresh.ca/careers.
Yeah, I think that's something that's very special about our industry and the CPMA, how collaborative everybody is, regardless of where you come from. In fact, all four of us are connected somehow through mentorship, through the Passion for Produce program over the years. So I'm going to shift again a little bit and talk about mentorship. And I think I can say with you, Stephanie, because as Ryan, when he kicked off the values answer, he said that Loblaws has sort of has programs for mentorship, programs for development. Erie James maybe doesn't have such a structure for that. So I'm just curious, in terms of mentorship, how do you what's your approach to mentorship? How has it impacted your career development, and how do you go out and find mentors?
Mentorship has really been the quintessential component of all of my career development. In fact, I credit my participation in the Passion for Produce program for connecting me with so many opportunities and by introducing me to all the volunteer leaders at CPMA, for the networking opportunities that many of those mentors there afforded me, not just through introducing me to other industry leaders, but also introducing me to folks that I could learn from. They made themselves available to me, answered my questions, provided a lot of support during my career journey. And I still keep in touch with my mentors today. They're always there for me. But in many instances, the chance meeting of these industry leaders, they recognized right away that I had a passion for serving and for participating at the industry level. They took an interest in me. They encouraged me and guided me to places in industry where I could really hone and develop my talents. And over time, it led to even more opportunities to grow and develop as a young professional and to become a young leader myself. But my approach to mentorship is actually really simple. I like to say that, and I truly believe this, that in serving others, we also serve ourselves. And what that means is I really attribute most of my success to volunteer leadership. It was the giving of my own time to serve an industry that really put me in direct connection with others who not only could help me grow, but guide me and direct me in the direction of those who really served before them. So it comes full circle. And now as a future leader, I give back by being a mentor. Whenever I have an opportunity to help somebody else, some other professional, I'd like to honor and pay forward the invaluable mentorship that I received from the ones who led before me.
That's great. Yeah, that's great. I love that it has come full circle. We're going into our 11th year in the Passion for Produce program. And Ashley, I see your comment. She says it's an excellent program. She's 100% right. And now we've built up sort of that alumni network, and many of us, 10 years ago have grown up, and we can now give that advice back to the next generation. So same question for you, Mike. Mentorship, tell us a little bit about how it's impacted your career. What's your approach? How do you stay in touch with your mentors, that kind of stuff?
Now, for me, it's been absolutely massive in my career development. The way I describe it is it's been the gut check and the sound of reason to help me develop. It's really improved my emotional intelligence and my self-awareness, because I think a lot of times when you're in a role, especially let's say in my case where my head office is remote, you have less and less interaction with people. So it's been a good way to bounce ideas, gut check, sometimes put me in my place. And that's helped me see the bigger picture. And I've used it in different ways as my career has progressed. Obviously, as I've gotten sufficiently senior in the company, the questions I've asked and what I've needed help with has differed from the early days of my career. But the point of finding someone that you connect with is critical. My approach has always been to find someone in my own company and find someone external. And that's just to get a breadth of different opinions. So I find sometimes internally it can help with the politics and navigating the organization, but at times we can both be too close to the fire, so to speak, to really both be able to step back.
Right.
So that's why I like to keep an external mentor too, which call it the unbiased gut check, someone that I can call, knows a little bit about what I'm going through or the position or what I'm dealing with, who can just give me that second viewpoint. And I've used those two somewhat interchangeably. And I'd say, to give the CPMA a plug on this one, which I'm sure Ian will love, it's been the best place to meet people to help. And whether they've become formal mentors or whether they've been just people to lean on for advice. Like I remember when I wanted to get involved in CPMA, I called Eric Bittiscombe, who I think is on this call today, and he was gracious and willing to help and have a coffee with me and talk about it. And as I've developed in the CPMA, from Ron Lemaire to Davis Young, past chairs, current chairs, board members, people have been welcome. So my advice on that would be own it. Go through the front door and do the best you can to put yourself in those positions to talk to these people.
Gotcha. No, that's awesome. So would you say, and I mean, we're jumping around a little bit here in terms of the questions that I laid up, but with COVID changing things, it's harder to get in front of people at the trade shows. How would you give some advice to the next generation about how do you go about finding a mentor in this environment?
I think this is, again, just my own opinion. I think, again, going back, it's twofold. One is look within your own company to find people that you resonate with, whose conduct you admire, the way they present situations, issues, solve problems. Reach out to them first and foremost. They're most apt to accept your email and want to partner with you just simply because you have a common purpose. For external, I think it's just putting yourself in positions like we're in today. We've got an entire list I can see here of guests. And then reaching out and finding out who the people are and board members and simply emailing them and asking them for 5 to 10 minutes of their time. I'll be honest, it's a huge ego boost when someone does it to me, and I'm willing to jump through hoops to help. So I imagine many others are probably feeling the same way. But simply own it and go out, identify those people, and try and make a connection. And you may hear no, keep pushing.
If you were to reach out to somebody now, a younger person, would you, for those 5 to 10 minutes, would you give them sort of a bit of background saying, hey, I'm looking for, how you've developed in your career? How would you actually operationally, how would you construct that email?
I'd start off with asking for an email. I'd start off with an email introducing myself, explaining who I am, what I'm involved with in the industry, why I've reached out to them, the things that I've seen that I think offer great value, areas I'd love to pick their brain on. And I'd use that to establish a 5 to 10 minute phone call, preferably on something like this so you can see each other, so that you can have a conversation about, here's what I'm looking for, here's what I've seen. I would love to touch base with you more frequently. I find if we can't do the face-to-face, then a Zoom call or a Teams call is the best way. But I agree with you, Greg, and kind of what you said earlier. Do you do it by email? I think unless you know the person really well, that's probably the best place to start. And plus, it allows you to formulate your own thoughts better in an email, how you want to word it. In case it's not your forte or you're more introverted or it's something that causes you anxiety, you can spend a lot of time writing that email just to settle the nerves down to go for it.
No, I like that. You really do own it. And I think, especially in this industry, you shouldn't be surprised, but the response rate, I think, from the mentors is gonna be there. So I think that's something that's special about produce as well. So thanks, Mike. Thank you for that full explanation. Ryan, your turn. What do you think about mentorship?
So let me start off by saying I wholeheartedly agree with everything that both Stephanie and Michael laid out for us today, specifically around how to approach the relationship and all that kind of thing. Just to that one point, I will add, be authentic. People can very easily see through facades. Like, you need to have a genuine interest in getting to know someone and developing a relationship with that person. It can't just be a box that you're checking off for your career development, very candidly. So with that being said, echoing what our other two panelists have said, mentoring has had a phenomenal impact to my career and also my personal development. For me, it's given me an avenue to tap into experience and insights that I otherwise would not have access to. Right, so some of that is other individuals in the same organization, and echoing with what Mike was saying, individuals outside of my organization that I deem as kind of the unbiased third party kind of thing, right? And really for me, most recently, it's been great for me moving into this new role because it's new role, bigger team, new types of questions and challenges that we have to answer, and being able to talk through some of these leadership ideas and concepts with, someone who's been there, done that, has 30 years managing a team of this size, like it's super, super helpful to get that kind of insight, right? Not to solve the problems, but to help shape your thinking in ways to consider or angles to think about it in, right? Also with that, I echo the idea that the mentee really has to own the relationship from start to finish, and really you need the discipline around that, like whether it be formally or informally setting an agenda, be accountable to commitments and follow-ups, and own the ins and outs of that relationship. I also think that's a great exercise because in my experience, it's forced me to really zero in on what I'm trying to get out of each of those mentor relationships. So by putting that structure and that discipline in, it forces you to self-reflect and figure out what exactly you're trying to get out of this to begin with, right? And then finally, I will say you don't have to have a one-to-one ratio. I found great experience where you can have different mentors for different skill sets or different experiences, and you can maybe bounce ideas off a couple of them and see what you get back and go from there.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So, I mean, the two things that sort of jump out from what you're saying is, number one, you own it. And then number two, I really like the idea of having sort of internal and external to sort of have a different perspective. And that helps you to develop and to look at problems differently and to solve problems more efficiently, et cetera. So mentorship, very important. So thank you guys for your feedback on that one. Now we're going to move, well, staying here, it could be feedback from mentors or whatever, but what I want to know is, if you look back at your career when you were a young person just starting in produce or wherever you started, what are some of the pearls of wisdom that you know now that you wish you had known then? So Ryan, you look like you have a grin. You look like you have something you want to add to this. So tell us, what would it be?
Well, it just ties into the mentorship thing so perfectly, right? Because as a mentor in that relationship, I'm constantly thinking, if I was in that position, what are the things that I would just die for, the little nuggets of knowledge or perspective, right? So I think it's a beautiful segue. I'll talk to two today really quickly, and I think a lot of it is around the value of introspection and asking yourself some really hard questions. So first off, it would be one around blind spots. So things that we have trouble seeing within ourselves or others, usually caused by our own unconscious biases, maybe our specific experiences, or honestly just not knowing what to look for, right? I think it's extremely valuable to take a hard look in the mirror and challenge our own understanding of things, whether it be, how things work, how a program runs, individuals within the team and what they bring or what they don't bring, things along those lines. And from a leadership perspective, I think it's critically important as the team gets larger and larger that we do this and we have the discipline to do it, because the opportunity for blind spots expands as you have more people and there's more work that you're not intimately involved with on the day-to-day. So definitely something there. Healthy dose of humility, have a hard look in the mirror and challenge your own assumptions. Secondly is, Sorry
to interrupt for a second. For you and for your team, do you actually schedule that time? Is it weekly, or do you a reflection or whatever the session would be?
No, the way it sits currently, Greg, it's very much a personal exercise, right? So, whether it be a personal, gap analysis, like where do I want to go, individual development plan building, or more of, for me being new to a team this size are the relationships between team members and the way the work flows down, is it really what I think it is? Or, and challenging my assumptions in that sense, because that really matters, and context around that is so important.
No, that's great, because then if you could identify where your gaps are personally, then you could start to match sort of the mentors, maybe what you need to do to develop more in specific areas. So that makes a lot of sense. So sorry to interrupt. You're saying so
no worries. And the second one, so we talked about the company values earlier already. I would also posit that we need to consider the type of person and the team you want to work for, not just the role title or the salary level. I've seen firsthand in a company as large as Loblaws, not all teams and not all leaders are created equal. And it's very important to find something that aligns with what you want and what you personally respond to, right? So, things like finding a leader that you find engaging and personally believe in their vision of what they want to achieve is huge. Also, what role does the team serve in the enterprise? So is it focused on step change and constant evolution, or is it more around consistency and process and structure? All of this has to align, otherwise you're going to find yourself swimming upstream.
Gotcha. No, thanks. I appreciate that. That's a really good response. All right, Stephanie, let's jump over to you. What are some of the things that you wish that you had known when you started your career that you know now?
Oh gosh, there's so many. This is a dynamic, fast-paced, but really rewarding industry. The first one I'll mention is change. Change is going to disrupt you along the way, and how you react or how you can manage change is going to make all the difference in your career, especially in this industry. The ability to adapt to change is paramount. Another one I would say is self-control is a strength. Your mood every day and how you handle the day. Your mood cannot shift based on insignificant actions that someone else, may have disrupted your day in some way. Whatever the situation, you need to you can never allow your emotions to overpower your intelligence during your day. There's always going to be something that comes up at you unexpected. You might be under pressure. You might be under the gun to make something happen. It's very important how you handle yourself every day. I would also say that you should treat everyone you meet in this industry with respect, as people tend to move a lot across the industry. And the very connection that you made yesterday could be the person that puts you in touch with the exact connection you're looking to make tomorrow. So it's really important when you're out there, the networking, always kind of be aware that people do move across industry. So it's sometimes you can make the most unexpected connections that really help you, that you don't at the time think that they might be insignificant, but they're really not. And lastly, I would probably say pearl of wisdom would be that you are a perishable item. So live accordingly. It's okay to take time out to rest. It's okay to do some creative pursuits outside the office. It's okay to spend time with your family and the people you love. We all know that pretty much anything that you unplug works better afterwards, including yourself. So your inbox is never going to be empty. And I just want to put that out there.
Yeah, well done. I think that's the best feedback we've had so far in the session. And especially now, with everybody working from home, I think, Ryan, on your email signature is something, I can't remember exactly what it says, but it's like, okay, feel free not to reply outside of business hours unless it's urgent and, truck's on fire or whatever. But I think that is really important to take time out to reflect, to recharge, and grow. So Stephanie, awesome. Thank you for that. Up to you, Mike. What are some of the things that you knew? Yeah, you got to top that.
Yeah, and I don't even think I'm going to try, because I agree wholeheartedly with what was said, particularly, Ryan, when you brought up the point about the humility and being self-aware. I think those are, pearls of wisdom I wish I would have had, because it would have prevented me from doing some dumb things in my career that I'd love to take back but simply cannot, and I learned from them. I'll leave you with two, and they're short and quick. One was a pearl of wisdom someone said to me that it didn't resonate then, but it resonates now, and it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. And I see it all the time with people coming up through organizations. They check the box, and I did the same things. Check the box, try and be involved in everything, cover every customer, in my case, selling, basically make myself look formidable on paper. And the truth is, it's a marathon. And unless you're getting the right experiences through that and developing your leadership, the truth is all they are is check marks on a page, and they don't mean anything. And it's really about developing yourself. And I wish I would have known that, because it would have steered me in different directions at that time. And the second one, to kind of echo what Stephanie said, is it's just a job. I mean, we've all been through personal hardships. I had one I went through last year, and I had to talk to my boss. I needed some time take care of my father. And his answer to me was, it's just juice, buddy. We just sell juice. And it just put it in perspective. It didn't mean the job's not important. It doesn't mean we're not going to work hard. It just means consider the context of what we're trying to do every day. In fact, it actually made me work harder in my off hours, because I appreciated so much the way he looked at the job. And now, being a young father, I've got 2 kids, 3 and under, I respect the time with them. And the fact that I can organize my day and at the end of it, spend it with them wholeheartedly. And it doesn't mean issues aren't going to come up and, there's going to be fires to put out and fire drills. But to have that perspective of what's important lets me give 100% of my job and 100% of the family. Because when those are out of balance, the world's not a good place, at least in my world.
Gotcha. No, 100% agree with you. Mike, you mentioned those experiences that you wish you had. How would you have known at the time what those experiences are? Obviously now you know, but looking backwards, how would you have figured out what you should be looking for?
When you're making the objective about yourself and not about the person you're sitting across from, and I'll refer to this one simply in a sales capacity and trying to sell, and obviously we have a retailer on this panel with us. When I'm going into meetings, let's say, I'll just use Loblaws as an example, and I'm just trying to push something and sell and I'm not listening, it can come across aggressive and you're focused solely on yourself. And that can lead you down a path that can be frustrating, not driving the results you want, and frustrating the people you're doing business with. When you can sit back and look at something and say, how do I make this work for everybody? And I know that sounds kind of, pie in the sky-ish, but when you approach it with that vein, it's amazing how people will open up and talk if they see you as authentic and genuine. You're trying to help each other. People will work with you. And there were many times in my career at the start where that wasn't the case, and I was pushing it. I have to hit my number or I'm not going to get the next position. You could have hit those numbers and still not got it because you did it the wrong way. And I would say if you find yourself in those situations where you're pushing your own agenda, that's probably the time where you should stop and think about how you want to present that.
Yeah, that's something really important. And actually, on a previous session, I remember, Mike, you said something about how you've learned to listen more through this experience or being on conference calls and dealing with customers. And I think that's an important thing to, as you develop and mature and become more senior, to listen as much more than you speak. And I think that's really important. You agree, Ryan?
May I interject with, so hearing a lot of what we're talking about, the idea that you are by itself a perishable commodity. I love it. And then, Mike's idea that, not all the juice is worth the squeeze per se of effort. I think it really goes back to this idea that not all developmental opportunities are created equal, right? And we all have a finite amount of bandwidth, a finite amount of resources, of time, effort, whatever. And you can't do everything all the time. Like, the industry is a fire hose that's going to be on 24/7. Like, if you had 7 days a week and 24 hours a day to do the work, not everything's going to get done.
Yeah.
Right. So it's a question of, figuring out what each opportunity can present to both yourself and, the project, the initiative, whatever, like the value it brings, and cherry pick them very candidly, because you can't do everything.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. So let me ask you this, Ryan. We'll shift gears towards the personal development. So everything we've talked about, mentors and experiences and awareness and all this, what are some of the things you do personally to continue to develop as a leader?
So this is actually kind of going meta here. This is something that Eric Bittiscombe, a little tidbit he gave me way back in the day. I always want to make sure that I am just a little bit uncomfortable with what I'm currently doing. So the idea here is that if I'm not at least a little bit uncomfortable, I'm not pushing myself hard enough for growth and to put myself in new positions. And being uncomfortable means I'm pushing myself outside of my comfort zone and I'm getting into new things or things on a new scale that I'm not used to. And personally, this is where I find the biggest opportunities for my growth. And it's translated into professional development as well. It's about calculated risks, putting yourself out there to learn, and that mindset. Like, you always want to be challenging yourself. You're always a student, right? Like, no one knows everything. No one has the best way to do something. There's always someone or some way out there that's better than yours. So it's about constantly trying to chase it down.
I love that, because I think I agree with you. The only way to grow is to be uncomfortable, to put yourself out there, to really challenge yourself, to learn new skills, and even if you fail, you've learned something, and you can apply that going forward.
Yeah, and so a lot of that comes back to the cultures too, Greg. Right? Like, are the organizations providing? This sounds kind of cheesy, cliche, but a safe space for people to take calculated risks on their personal development and business development.
Gotcha. No, that's really good. That's great advice. I agree with everything you said except for the Eric Bittiscombe thing. I'm not 100% sure about him. But Stephanie, what do you think? What are some of the things that you're doing to continue to develop personally?
Well, as Ryan hit it right on the head when he talked about comfort zone, and what I do is I read for several hours every single day. I read everything I can about the niches in the industry that interest me. I try to take a course or a training opportunity anytime it's offered to me, or at least once a year do something to sharpen or learn new skills. But it often does mean stepping out of the comfort zone. You definitely can't chase your dreams from your comfort zone. It does involve a little bit of risk. I can say from experience that when opportunity does knock, it knocks softly, and it's up to you to kick that door open. And almost always, the big opportunities will come to you when you are busy or when you just least expect it. It's maybe not the opportune timing, but if you're not mindful and recognize this is a big opportunity, and even though the timing, I feel like I'm busy or I'm overwhelmed, you have to have the discipline to say, no, I'm going to go for this, and trust and have the faith that, when I make that jump that I'm going to fly, because you definitely can't chase the dreams from the comfort zone. And I think Ryan really eloquently put it when he said that he always wants to be just a little bit uncomfortable in what he's doing to press forward and to just keep that appetite for more.
Awesome.
And so I make constant use of the industry webinars. So things like today, the CPMA offered webinars, the groups and webinars that are often free online, the networking. This is a great place to share best practices with your peers and get into discussions. And again, the opportunities, they often come from places exactly like this, talking like this today.
Gotcha. What? Well, first of all, I was joking about Eric Bittiscombe. He's great. In case you guys didn't know that. So since you read a lot, I think that's an excellent way to get a lot of knowledge. Whoever put the book together, put all of their knowledge into there, and you could extract it. Can you recommend any books that maybe are unconventionally have had some influence on you and how you manage yourself in the industry?
There is a really cool book by Brian Tracy. It's called Eat That Frog. And what that means is he teaches that you should really, if you have a task that you've been procrastinating on, or just an unsavory task that you've been putting it off, every morning you should eat the frog first. Do that hardest task first. Get on with your day. And it actually comes from a Mark Twain quote, which I'll probably quote horribly. But he says that if it's your job to eat a frog, then you should eat the frog first. And if it's your job to eat 2 frogs, you should eat the bigger one first. So it really is kind of a neat book about time management and how to get through, those tasks that you kind of dread but are still necessary in your day. And the other one I would recommend is Eckhart Tolle's book, The Power of Now, which basically just teaches us that all we have is now. Tomorrow's not promised to anyone. And if you're not mindful and living in the present, you can miss a lot that's going on around you. You can miss opportunity. You can miss things if you're not present and paying attention to what's going on.
That's great. Yeah, that's a good book. I've never read it, but I think the concept resonates. That's awesome. So thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you.
Mike, what sort of things do you do to continue to develop personally? And then any books you're reading, since we're talking about books, you can
Sure.
talk about that.
When you go third, you're lucky because you can just say ditto. Because what was just said was absolutely true, and I agree wholeheartedly. I agree with the uncomfort. And usually if you're sitting in your job and you feel like I got everything going good, that's the telltale sign that you aren't looking for other opportunities. For me, the big thing, what I'm doing to develop as a leader is I'm opening myself up to scrutiny. And I'm not waiting for it to come to me. I'm opening myself up to my team, to my boss, to others I work with, and I'm humbly saying, I'm not the finished product. I made a mistake. I don't know. I need your input. Can we solve this together? And I'm finding that approach is working well, and it's allowing me to uncover areas I need to improve on. That in turn is making me be a better leader because I can demonstrate how opening yourself up to your team invites them to do the same thing. And for me, I would say, outside of what was said, that's the biggest thing to me is just putting yourself out there and being okay to admit you haven't got it all and you're not the finished product. And once you allow yourself the right to say that and you can live by that, it's amazing how much more you can achieve and get done. I mean, one thing I do personally, I've done every year, is I share my performance review with the team. My reports, good or bad, things I got to work on. I mean, other than obviously the financial aspect of a review or anything truly personal, the rest of it, I just open it up and say, hey, here's what I did well this year, and here's some areas I need help with, and I want you to call me out on it. So hopefully that gives a bit of context.
No, that's great. And I think you mentioned there, you said once you've earned the right to say that you made a mistake. Is that something, does it depend on sort of the culture of the company? Because I think people will sometimes, depending on that environment, be reluctant to do that. It could be a political risk. It could. So what's your comments on that?
My thought on that, if opening yourself up and saying I made a mistake or I need help with something is not seen as a positive, you're in the wrong place. That's just my true opinion of it. If you can't open yourself up to scrutiny, ask for help, admit it, know you're not the finished product, and that isn't nurtured and developed, you're in the wrong company. With all due respect to anyone who's on this call who feels that way at their companies, that's just my own opinion. Oh, and Greg, you asked what book I'm reading? I know, you can't see it with my view. Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. He's an FBI negotiator. I love negotiation books. It just makes me realize how many things when I'm in a meeting that I'm doing that are telltale signs. So it's just helped me prepare a little bit. And it's just been a fascinating read. I'm only on chapter 2, but I imagine I'm going to be racing through this over the next couple of weeks.
Awesome. And Ryan, I'm curious your perspective on this in terms of being able to, coming from a big corporation, is it different to be able to say, hey, I screwed this up, or what's your perspective on this?
Yeah, it's critically important, right? And it goes back to that kind of creating safe places for people to make mistakes very candidly, right? I really don't have too much to add, to be honest with you, Greg. I agree with absolutely everything Mike said. Maybe I will just add that from a leadership perspective, lead by example. And I think it was mentioned earlier in the call. If you're trying to instill, a practice or a culture, and it involves, people being a little bit more vulnerable and putting themselves out there, well, in my mind, the expectation is that the leadership leads with it.
Yeah, I think you mentioned at the beginning finding not just a company culture, but a boss, a leader, somebody that you could learn from, somebody who could be vulnerable in that team. I think that's incredibly important. There's a saying, it's like people don't leave companies, they leave bosses, something like that. So really, really awesome stuff. I mean, that's pretty much, that's all the questions that I had on my sheet. And I would say I'm blown away by the feedback. So I'm going to go back and rewatch this and even take more notes when we're finished here. And in terms of questions, we have 10 minutes left. In terms of questions, Ashley has asked, if you had the choice of any mentor, who would it be? And you can't say Eric Biddiscombe. It's a good question. I'm not, Ashley, maybe you can give some more context. Is it, could it be anybody? I mean, could it be somebody famous? Could it be, I don't know. I guess we could be creative with this one. What do you got?
Elon Musk. It's someone who just has an amazing personal story. He's, in my mind, like quite the inspiration because he's a market disruptor, like good or bad. Like say what you will about his methods and how, what he posts on Twitter and whatnot. But that would be such a unique perspective to be able to tap into, something that's so foreign to me. I would love that.
Awesome. What about you, Mike or Stephanie? Any ideas? Stephanie?
Stephanie, please.
Gosh. Well, I just have to put this out there that Eric Biddiscombe was actually my mentor, for real. So shout out to Eric and thank you. And I'm going to say if I could have anybody, gosh, there's so many good ones. I mean, CPMA is loaded with awesome mentors. I can't name them all, but there's been at least 4 or 5 that have been instrumental for me. So I definitely want to shout out to them and recommend that to anybody who might be in the Passion for Produce program or thinking about joining. You will find all kinds of awesome CPMA mentors. But I guess if I had to choose one, he's gone now, but my grandfather, he was actually one of my most greatest mentors. He taught me that every day it didn't really matter what was going on every day. You should know what's going on at all times, good or bad. We always need to know where we're at so we know where we want to go. And he was just such a positive influence and just a fantastic businessman. I really admire him, and I miss him so much.
Thank you, Stephanie. What about you, Mike?
Those were two great answers.
You go third again. Here you go. Just say ditto.
No, I ditto. I totally agree with the grandfather one because I feel the same way about mine. But to pick up, let's say, a business professional, passed away, obviously, Stephen Jobs. The self-belief and the conviction to follow that path. I mean, I can't imagine how much I could learn from somebody like that. I mean, it's not. I don't have that type of character the same way, and to be able to learn from someone that has it and forget everything else, this is where we're going and what we're going to do, and to get people behind it, I think I would learn a ton. Plus, he changed the world. I mean, that's a pretty good place to, it's a pretty good accolade to have.
Awesome. Those are all good answers. So I think definitely a key takeaway, if you haven't figured it out, is that mentors, super important for development, and the PFP is a great program. So we have two more. One's a quick question. Stephanie, what's the second book you mentioned?
It was The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle.
Excellent. Okay, and possibly the last question we're going to get to here. Thank you, Quentin. This is a good one. Where would you point younger people in terms of where to go to get started in the industry, other than PFP? Although I would say it is the premier program. If you can get in, please do. But where would you? What direction would you point them in? Ryan.
This comes from a place of bias given the size of the organization, but to start, I would say look internally to begin, right? As someone new coming into the industry, there is a wealth of experience and knowledge within your own organization. Start with that. Tap into some unique perspectives. With experience comes industry contacts and networking opportunities. And try to kind of, exhaust what's close to you first and then grow out from there.
So do you mean you look at somebody who's in a role that says, oh, this looks interesting, this part of produce, I should speak to this person, have a coffee?
Yeah, absolutely. Like the nice thing about the produce industry, and this was talked about earlier, is it's filled with people who are just very humble and down to earth, kind of salt of the earth type people, right? Like people very candidly, sounds terrible, but people love talking about themselves, right? Like you want 5-10 minutes, let's go for a coffee. Just tell me about what you do. I want to learn more, but be genuine with your approach. You'll be surprised how positive of a response you'll get.
Gotcha. That's great. Thanks for that, Ryan. And then Mike, what do you think?
I agree with Ryan. I would also add to that is seek out the industry associations and find out what events they're running and get yourself involved in those. And whether it's volunteering, whether it's just attending sessions like this, the more things you go to, the more you're going to see the opportunities that exist, the more you're going to run into people that you may view as potential mentors or even people to mentee, so on and so forth. It starts by just being involved. And I would also say follow where your passion is. If you're passionate about produce marketing, CPMA does that, and there's committees that does it. If you're interested in regulatory, put your efforts there. Again, you can't be everything. Like we said, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You could still fill it up in a heartbeat. So try and identify where your passion is, because I think if you're passionate about what you're trying to get involved with, you'll do a much better job at it.
Gotcha. Yeah, agree. 100% agree. Stephanie, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, Ryan and Mike both, they both covered my points, but I'm going to mention one more. I know that COVID has upended the way we socialize today and the way we network today, but a really great way to build relationships and network if you can't be out there socially, like in public, is check us out on LinkedIn. Most of us are on LinkedIn. You can find CPMA and other produce industry association and groups. They're on there. Reach out, introduce yourself. Start getting involved in the conversations. Don't be shy. And 9 times out of 10, and I think the guys before me mentioned this, people are flattered when you reach out to them. Humans by nature like to help people. 9 times out of 10, you're going to ask somebody for something. They're going to be glad to point you in the direction that you need. So absolutely put yourself out there and try to connect, even if you use that platform or others. And look us up. We're glad to answer questions.
That's awesome. Okay, I think we're getting to the end here. Thank you, Eric, for the thank you comments from everybody and the questions. So we're gonna end it here. So I know we have a 2:00 a hard stop. So thank you, Ryan, Mike, Stephanie. and Eric Bittiscombe. Thank you all for being part of this session today. Insights have been amazing, really. I mean that. I'm sort of blown away by those different perspectives. That's what I promised at the beginning, and I hope you and the audience are able to take a lot away from this. If you did miss anything, this is recorded in the CPMA. It's available. It will be available on the community page, the CPMA's community page, and I think they send out an email as well. But log in, you can find it. And before I go, just a quick reminder, the CPMA Fresh Week is happening April 12th to the 16th. And we have a great schedule of education sessions as part of that virtual show. So don't miss it. If you listen to everything they said today, despite COVID, it's going to be a great opportunity to stay in touch with the community, with the produce industry. So go to convention.cpma.ca to register. And that's it. So thank you, everyone, for joining, and have a great afternoon.
Thank you for the opportunity. Cheers, guys.
Cheers, guys.
Thank
Take
you,
care.
Greg, for facilitating.
My pleasure. It was a lot of fun.
Cheers,
Thanks,
mate.
guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks again to Stephanie, Mike, Ryan, and Greg for participating on the panel. To any CPMA members, our 2021 Farm to Plate Advocacy virtual event is happening May 31st and June 1st. Head to cpma.ca/industry to learn more. Until next time, fill half your plate with fruits and veggies, continue to seek out new knowledge, and basically never stop growing.